This is Dr. Herbert Harris, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Success Talk. You know, each week we bring you people who have achieved great things, who have overcome obstacles, but who have made breakthroughs to achieve their greatness. And today we have a good friend, Darrell Evans. Welcome, Darrell.
Dr. Harris, super excited to be here with you. How are you?
Oh, man, let me tell you, if it gets any better, they're going to make it illegal.
I know that's right.
Well, Darrell, man, I thank you so much for taking the time to pop up here to share us. Hold 1 second. Let me just see what is going on here. We'll fix that. Interesting. Okay, we can fix that.
Sure.
But anyway, Darrell, welcome to Success Talk, man. You've done great things. We're super proud of you, and we just thank you for sharing your time with us today.
I appreciate you having me and look forward to the conversation. And hopefully, listening audience, I can impart some of my failures and successes so that they maybe can have a little bit more of their own. Less failures, more successes. That's for sure.
Well, you know, many times we fail our way to success, you know.
Yeah, there's no other way.
Anyone who has not failed has probably never accomplished anything.
Yeah, still sitting on the couch.
Well, now tell a little about your background. Where'd you grow up? What were your early years like?
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, I grew up here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and my parents met here, yeah, I think they met here from by way of Alabama and California. So I grew up here. Started in entrepreneurship around 20 or so. I was also in college, and so I got my first taste of entrepreneurship around 20 years old. I was also at the same time in restaurant management, putting myself through college. And so I got a chance to see both the operational side of a fast-moving restaurant. Those in the United States will be familiar with Taco Bell.
Yes.
And so I was a young general manager there. I actually started as a fry cook, just trying to put a few dollars in my pocket. And before you know it, I did a few things. I worked, I guess, a little hard, and they said, maybe this guy can move up. So they moved me up. Started from a fry cook, went to the back cook, went to the kitchen side, to the front side, to the cash register, to where I had keys. And then they sent me to some management training. And next thing you know, I had a restaurant. I didn't intend to, but yeah, 20. So I had a restaurant. It was pretty cool. It was about an $800,000 a year restaurant, and then went on to manage 2 restaurants before I finished college at the same time. And but entrepreneurship was my calling. I finished a degree in finance here at UNLV, but and then it became a nice run into the world of entrepreneurship. You get to learn how to do all of the things you saw at a restaurant, but now you've got to produce it all yourself. And so, I've had some wins, I've had some losses. Actually, one of my first businesses did well. Second business didn't do well. And then we ended up in the mortgage industry 2000 and had a really nice career there, co-owned a mortgage company. And but I started in digital marketing in 2003, and that was sort of the light bulb for me. And so all the while through the mortgage industry, we were generating revenue, generating leads and revenue from online, because I was an early adopter to the online space. Started on LinkedIn in 2006, YouTube channel in 2007, Twitter 2008. I mean, and I just saw it. I just saw it changing. And so when the market was pivoting in 2008, 9, and 10, I was still bringing in quite a bit of business, kind of not on autopilot. I don't like that phrase, but it was coming in at a regular clip, and a lot of people were still struggling. And I'm like, did you guys hear this thing called the internet? And so I started doing some consulting and realized a lot of small businesses weren't up to speed with what was transitioning in the market. And I said, So I had met my co-founder of our digital marketing agency now, which is what we do today. We have primarily it's our digital marketing agency called Yoka Local. We're based here in Vegas, but we have a virtual team now. And met my co-founder at the time, and we started the company around 2011. So for the last 12 years, we've been working with small and mid-sized companies, helping them grow and scale their businesses online through all the traditional things, Google Ads, Facebook, email, right, all of the things. But our customers typically, they just don't really care for all of the stuff that happens in the background. And so they want to outsource it to us. And we're like their digital marketing department, and we come in and help them grow. And it's been a pretty decent run for the last 12 years or so.
Well, that's such a necessary thing, because so many companies sort of came along in that in-between era. You know, the young folks know nothing but digital marketing.
Right.
The old folks don't know anything about digital marketing. And so
100%.
you have that in-between there where a company like yours can really help a lot of people and make a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You hit on it, right? Typically the customer who hires us, the business owner who hires us, or the CEO, executive, or director of marketing for a company, they're generally over 45.
Yeah.
That's our market. I mean, it's not that the young folks don't need us. It's just that they're okay failing because they grew up with the device in their hand. They grew up on Facebook. They grew up on Instagram. They grew up on Twitter. They grew up with a mobile device in their hand. And for a lot of seasoned entrepreneurs, and most of our customers are 5, 10, 15, 20 years in business, and they just haven't been able to make the shift. And what they're doing is they're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall to see if it sticks.
Yes.
And a lot of times I say they're even outsourcing what they don't understand just because they don't want to do it.
Right.
And that gets them in a world of trouble. So
yeah,
we do a lot of teaching and training so that the business owner understands what's happening behind the scenes, even if they don't want to touch it, even if they want to know, I don't want to hear about the blog posts. I don't want to hear about the social media accounts. Just make the phone ring, just make the leads come in.
Yeah.
But so many of them, they just want to write the check and go back to doing what they do, law or medicine or engineering or accounting or whatever it is they do. But they've got to understand. And I think a lot of them today are realizing they've been burned.
Yeah.
They don't want to always admit it. They've been burned because they were hoping it was easier than it was.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of them get burned and don't even know that they've been burned until they learn more about what they were doing.
And that's 100% fact. That's a fact.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation. I say when I'm talking to a company about growth, and I'm usually on the strategy side. I don't handle execution hardly much these days, although I love execution. It's just where we are in scale. I lead strategy sessions, and we have half-day workshops, and I really break down what's happening strategically. But it is so funny that I hate to say it, but I know I have a great company opportunity is when they're a little bit upset. And if they're upset, and a lot of times they're upset because they think they didn't know what they didn't know.
Right.
And they spent a lot more money than they should have. But we're here to say, look, at least you were in the game. And now we got you. We got the right recipe for you. So we'll take care of you.
Wow. Well, Darrell, that's incredible. But you went over an early part, and I think many of our young people, you went from being a fry manager to
a cook.
Right.
I was managing the fryer is what I was managing.
Yeah. You're managing the fries. I love that.
Managing frying them taco shells is what I was managing.
I hear you, man. Well, but you went from the fries to an owner. Tell a little about that, because that sounds like, normally when you think of a franchise like a Taco Bell or any of these franchises, you think about people having a lot of money to invest to buy a franchise. How do you go from the fries to the front office?
Well, yeah. So I was a fry cook. I never owned the Taco Bell. I didn't buy the franchise. I wasn't a franchisee. I worked for a franchisee, and I ended up as a general manager of 2 restaurants out of their 23. And had I stayed, they wanted me to manage 6. I was ready to, they wanted me to move up to manage 6. Well, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't want to be a general manager. I'll be dead honest with you. I went there to make a couple bucks, but I was also taught that you do a good job wherever you show up. You prosper where you're planted, right? You don't get success in life by, wishing and praying and hoping. No. It's hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. And you can't be the person holding the mic with all the influence until you're willing to sweep the floors, right?
Yes.
So, I busted my tail because I was taught to do that. Like, I was taught to show up and do my job. I didn't happen to know that the way I was frying and the way I was getting my job done, it was exceeding their expectations. I didn't realize that.
Yes.
I just was told I had to fry this many shells and this many things. And by the way, this is when minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. I was making $3.35 an hour. I'm only 53 this year, so it ain't that long ago.
Yeah,
I'm making $3.35 an hour. I'm sitting at the fryer in the back corner of the store, and it just became, their job is to find talent, and move them up in the ranks, and I just kept getting moved up, and I kept saying yes, because obviously I wanted to make more money. But I think when I even became a general manager, I'm not sure if I was making $10 an hour. I don't know, but obviously this is time, ways ago. But as far as ownership, though, it was that desire to know that I had done a good job and I was capable of doing a good job. I think that you can't be a great owner. Some people would disagree with me, but I think you can't be a great business owner unless you're going to be a great employee, right? You have to be a great employee in order to be a great. You can't just buck a system and be against the ebb and flow of structure, and then think that you're going to go build something that needs structure if it's going to scale.
Yes.
So for me, learning the repetitions in that fast food environment, average age person is I think 17 years old at that time. I think, turnover is typically 200% in a restaurant. That's a lot of people coming and going, but the system never breaks. And so you got to take respect out of that. And so I learned a lot of that, and I was able to see it from the back of the house to the general manager side. I got to manage people, handle ordering, handle crisis. Like, how about this? You run out of meat on a holiday weekend because the truck broke down on the way from California to Nevada. And now you got to figure out where your ground beef is coming from to make 39-cent tacos back in the day.
Wow.
Like, you got to handle crisis. I can't tell you how many times that happened. You get stuff off the truck and it's spoiled when it's supposed to be fresh. And so I was able to learn how to handle adversity in the midst of that scenario, and you just can't shut the restaurant down, right?
Yes.
So I think I learned a lot of how to handle the ebbs and flows in the moment. And Dr. Harris also played sports, and I think that played into my psychology as well, because any great athlete or coach of a team or a sport of any kind, you realize you can only prepare up until the time the game starts.
Right.
When the game starts, right, you have to make game time adjustments, as we say.
Yes.
And I coached football for years. I played baseball, football, basketball, and I'm a student of sports. And I realized that sports and business go hand in hand. So I think I had a little bit of that DNA in me as well to make me a better entrepreneur and a better person who could ebb and flow through the dynamics. But ownership became for me something that I just saw it as my path. No one else in my family was an entrepreneur, and not many of my friends were entrepreneurs. Many more of them are today.
Yes.
But 30 years ago, I was kind of going left when everybody was going right.
Yes. Well, just listening to your conversation about that, that work ethic is critical. And I think that's what people respected. I interviewed a young man, and he kind of similar. He loved doing a good job. And eventually he was, working in somebody else's restaurant, and a lady came in and she saw him, and she dropped in, a couple of times a month. And she saw his attitude and, his work ethic. And so she said, how would you like to own your own restaurant? Right. And he was like, yeah, that's my goal. And it turned out that there was a restaurant near Michigan, near Detroit, that I guess, with the franchise regulations, if a owner doesn't do certain things, I guess the company can take it back.
Yes.
And so
that's true.
They literally put the finance package together. So with no money and just a positive attitude and a good work ethic, he became an owner, and eventually, bought another one, etc. And his story was similar in that idea that he did a good job personally. And that's what I'm hearing when you were saying, everybody else may handle the fries, but you handle them in such a way that the person, whoever's running the show, goes like, man, this guy knows what he's doing with the fries. Maybe we'll put him in charge of the shells. But that's so important. I want our young people to really see that, because that's how you create an opportunity. You bring your own sense of excellence and work ethic to it. But then those in a position who understand business can say, hey, come on in. Let me move you on up. And I think people sort of move you along, kind of testing you to see how you're going to, whether you grow into it or whether you don't grow into it. and they move you as fast as you wanted to go.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I got to tell you, it turns out that the person who actually recommended that I get promoted ended up getting fired for embezzling cash.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that going on in the restaurant business back in the day. And so, but I also think that, yeah, deciding to do a good job is personal. Like everyone, whether you like your job, don't like your job, you'd rather be doing something else. You know, I've got 3 kids. We've got a total of 5 kids in our blended family now. Ages 33 down to 19. And I've told all my kids when they went to go get a job, it doesn't matter about the job. It matters about how you show up, right? This isn't where you're going to be for the rest of your life, but you can't show up here with an attitude that this place, is not where you want to be, not treating. I mean, we're all going to go through some things. And so the reality is you just show up. So along my journey, Dr. Harris, at the general manager level, my store has had 7 robberies.
Wow.
And that was a little bit high compared to some of the other stores. And so the finger started getting pointed at me at one point, like maybe he's involved. And so, those are the types of adversities, though, that you called them tests. And the reality is you have to push through those tests. I mean, my integrity, I don't know if in 11 years, 10 and a half years that I think I was at the restaurant, Taco Bell total, I'm not sure I missed 12 days of work. I don't think I just showed up.
Yeah.
That's just how I'm wired. I'm still wired like that to this day.
Yeah.
But I think to the point of you have to be willing to give your best all the time. And even if it's not where you ultimately want to be, you have to give your best. And when people see that, people that are of influence, people that are of authority, they will elevate you. And but you can't be elevated if you're just trying to be lazy.
Wow. Yeah. They only elevate what is.
They elevate when it's comfortable. They elevate when it benefits them. They elevate when, I just wasn't taught that way. My parents taught me to do your best. You never get a chance to make a good first impression. You never get a second chance to make a good first impression. They taught me things like that. And whether they're all true or not, I don't know, but I just was taught to do a good job and also carry a high quality standard with my work.
Yeah.
And that still has passed on, and it'll serve anyone who stands by those things.
Well, that's such a profound message, because many times when people want to move up, it's always an inside job. You always bring yourself to the party.
Come on.
And so, yeah.
Come on.
and people see that, and they see that person that does that goes that extra mile, that shows up. In my early years in corporate America, one of my teachers, he said, look, you want to move up, you be here when the boss gets here, and you be here when the boss leaves.
Right.
He said, if you don't do anything, if you do that, he said, you'll create such a relationship between you and the boss that the boss will know, well, you know what, I can count on him.
Yeah.
That guy's
100%.
always there. Yeah. So that's powerful, man. Darrell, you are such a self-assured person. Did you ever have to deal with self-doubt where you weren't so sure about yourself and had to make some kind of adjustment or breakthrough?
I still battle self-doubt today. And I'll tell you, so my first thought goes back to my early 20s when I didn't take the leap of faith 100% as an entrepreneur. I stayed with the comfort of that job. It wasn't that my business wasn't profitable. I had what would be deemed a side hustle, but it was profitable. And if I would have done the math, I should have left the job. And I had someone speak into me and say, why are you working still at Taco Bell when you are profitable doing this other thing? And my mindset and framework was, oh, this job is a little too good for a 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid to leave. I got a baby and this and that. So I battled it then. And there's a message that I've often said. People say to me, well, if you could tell your 21-year-old self, if you can give your 21-year-old self some advice, and it would really be believe in yourself a little sooner. And that's my own advice to me. And so I actually have battled self-doubt on every growth stage of my life. I battled self-doubt when I started public speaking. I battled self-doubt when I started doing Facebook Lives. I battled self-doubt when I created my first training program. I battled self-doubt when I walk into a room that doesn't look like me and I had every reason and right to be there. I've battled self-doubt. I do it regularly. Here's the key. I don't let self-doubt become my identity.
Ooh, okay.
See, what I've learned is it's okay to feel that fear or feel that little, I'm not sure I'm worthy of this, or I'm not sure, and, where I come from very middle class, and we had a 3-bedroom house. It was about 1,000 and some odd square feet, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 3 kids, 2 parents. That's not the biggest house on the planet, certainly not the smallest. I certainly never slept on the floor, ate out of a garbage can, and never missed a meal. But
Right.
they made ends. So when I started experiencing some levels of success financially, and I started having freedom, and I started to make my own decisions, I didn't have a lot of people to turn to. And so I couldn't turn to the same people who were necessarily my friends. And so I doubted myself in some of my decisions. I doubted myself in some of my next steps in business, next steps in life. And then, of course, when you have some failures, I went through some tough spots. Making it be an entrepreneur sounds cool.
Yeah.
But it's not cool when you got $1,800 a month in expenses and $1,400 a month in income. You got a $400 gap. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
Your credit score doesn't do well during that season. I had a 470 FICO at one time.
Wow.
This is back in the late 90s. When
Yeah.
I decided to leave and start my next business, I was also going through a breakup with my 2 sons' mom. We had split. And part of the reason my podcast is called the Mind Shift Podcast is because I woke up one day and found out that I was going to have to be a father to my 2 sons across 4 state lines, and they were going to be 1,300 miles away from me. And that took me I had to sit with myself and say, am I going to be able to do this? Like, what am I going to have to do? How am I going to have to change? What is my vision for being a good father now that they're going to live there and I'm going to live here, and all those things? And so I honor doubt, because if I have some doubt, it means I'm about to try something new.
Ooh.
And if I'm trying something new, it feels like I'm being led to do it. Like right now, I'm jumping into the world of AI. I just spent 3 days at an AI conference, all the buzz around ChatGPT and generative AI, and it's a completely new territory for me, and I don't have a tech background. And so I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but it's exciting. And so I honor the doubt. And then I say, that's just not who I am, though. So we always have a figure it out mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, now, you just touched on something. I'm looking at it myself. Everything changes so fast. This AI, I mean, just a year ago, nobody was talking about it. And now it's almost like full blown, full blast. If you're not with it, you're gonna get left behind. So
Yes.
yeah,
and it's scary. It's scary and exciting all at the same time. It's scary and exciting all at the same time. And I'm not the person who's got the technical knowledge of it. That's why I decided to go to this 3-day conference and really start to absorb. But 27 pages of notes, and I'm excited and overwhelmed at the same time. But it's that time where, to your point, fast mover advantage really is a thing.
Yes.
Fast and first mover advantage is a thing. So if anybody's listening to this right now and you're not sure you're ready to jump into this conversation around AI and ChatGPT and how it will and won't affect your business, the reality is it's here.
Yeah.
It's global. It's going to change things. And it has not been new. Let's be clear. It was available in the wholesale world. Now it's available to the retail world, us.
Yes.
And so it's about who's going to move fast. And you got to override your skepticism and perhaps your fear and your doubt, because there's a lot of talk about how many jobs it's going to replace, et cetera, et cetera. But every technology has changed the scope of economics and the workforce.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So let's embrace it. Let's find out where we play. Let's find out how we can use it to our advantage. Let's find out how we can be on that early adopter part of the chasm, and we'll be fine.
Well, that whole mindset of an early adopter, that those people who are at the cutting edge, at the front of change, and who understand that that's a good place to be, that when you're looking at entrepreneurship is probably more sensitive to change than than anything else, you know.
Right.
And so when you see these changes coming as an entrepreneur, you always have to stay in the learning mode.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can't not. You can't
Uh-huh.
not, right? If you think about it, there was an investor who was at this, there was a venture capitalist at this event, and he spoke right towards the end. And he said, people are asking him some questions about some of his best investments and this, what did he see that made him make the investment? And he said it like this: this is a guy that's super wealthy. They say he's a billionaire, although he never said that.
Uh-huh.
The people in the room said he was a billionaire, but he didn't say that. And he said, a lot of it is just timing. It had nothing to do with how smart he was.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just timing. And so if we look at all of the developments in history, where were we at the right place at the right time, and did we act?
Yes.
And to me, this is one of those at the right place at the right time. The question is will we act? And listen, ChatGPT and all of this stuff could disrupt one of my entire business models completely in a negative way to me as the agency. So I have to pay attention to what the real dynamic shift could be for the work that we do. But at the same time, I'm leaning into the adaptation of the change, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
lead the conversation around it in my space, so that we are thought of as a thought leader on this topic, not just someone who's adapting as it goes. So there's a great opportunity for everybody, and a lot of times it's just timing. It's not you being smartest, just timing. Be there, be present, take action.
Beautiful, beautiful. In the as an entrepreneur, one of the things I see is, number one, I honor you and thank you for sharing that, because many of us in this position, like I'm a little older than you, and many of my contemporaries have kind of thrown in the towel, saying, I don't want to learn anything.
Yeah.
I worked 40 years. I have a friend that says, I don't want to learn anything about the computer. I was on the computer 40 years. I want to tell him, you were not on the computer. You were sitting at the desk, okay? But you were. but I don't want to know email. I don't want to cut and paste. I don't want to do any of this stuff. And it's really uh, it limits your ability now, because your exposure level is like only what's right there in front of you. And so many times when these changes take place and you keep that open mind to always stay in a learning mode, that can prepare you. And so I honor what you're doing, and you've motivated me. I'm going to go on and learn some more about it, because I've not been a good early adapter. I've always been kind of not a wait and see, but like, whatever I'm doing is working. So I'm not going to go jump into something else that may or may not work when what I have is working. So,
Right. Right.
I take my time, but I really see what you're doing, and you've motivated me. I'm going to look into that some more.
Yeah, and let me say this about that too. I mean, you say it in your book. There's a number of your universal laws that we've talked about today in grand scheme, right? We've got to have law of focus. Like, we can't just get distracted because something new came out. We got to take action. Universal law number 7, if I remember seeing it in your.
Yes.
These are things that we've been talking about, a lot of these things, but we also got to remember that the opportunity is not necessarily, do you have to take time out of your day to learn something new, like your friend said or your colleague said, but do you have relationships where you can tie into the person who might be running that race? Listen, I'm 53. I'm 30 years in this entrepreneurship game. Listen, I don't wake up every day thinking, boy, I'd sure love to go learn something brand new that I never was. Listen, I'm not that excited either. But what I realize is that change is inevitable. And I think that's earlier in your book as well, right? The universal law of change. Like,
yes,
we hate change as humans.
Yes.
But change and taxes are like two things that are just inevitable, right?
Yes.
So I've learned to adapt and adjust to change. As I said, even earlier in my talk today, there was something about my early being in sports. There wasn't certainty. So I got comfortable. And one of the human desires, I learned this from Anthony Robbins. I didn't study this myself, but he said one of the things that humans crave is certainty.
Yes.
And the problem is, because of that desire for certainty, we're unwilling to be open to change, even when it's in our own benefit. There's a lot of people that, they stay in harm's way, though the signs are written on the wall.
Yes.
And so this is one of those times where, and again, I'm not trying to sound an alarm like there's a catastrophe coming, but if anybody's watched iRobot with Will Smith in it,
yes,
and there was the robots that were the NS3s,
right,
that were the nice robots, and then
yes,
the NS5s were the mean robots, right?
Yes.
They had been programmed a certain kind of way. The reality is, it's not just about the tool called AI and these chatbots, but it's really what you can actually get from them, right? If you really look at it. I mean, I go back to the days of the Jetsons. If I put some dates on myself, Rosie and the Jetsons was a pretty cool little device. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
So I think it's this, though. Can we, if we don't want to do the work ourselves, fine. Let's find a community. Let's find a home. Let's find a network of people who are actually going to stay on the forefront of the information and just be close.
Yes.
Just be close. And that's what I did last week. I didn't intend to go to that conference. That conference came to me with a text message from a friend of mine, a colleague, longtime friend of mine. She says, "Hey, I think you ought to need to be at this," because I had done a class and a training on ChatGPT. She said, "Hey, did you know about this event?" I'm like, "No, I didn't." She goes, "Well, it's these dates." And I'm like, I got stuff going on. And it was a 3-day event, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to make it. She says, "I really think you ought to make it." And so I took that as a sign that says, she's not trying to hype me up. Right. She ain't trying to sell me nothing. And she said, "Based on what I heard you talk about in your class, I think you should be at this event." And so I made some changes and got out to the event. And again, 27 pages of notes later, it's a tad bit overwhelming, but it's at the same time exciting. And so if I can help be the mouthpiece for those that want to listen, that's what I intend to do, and hope that as I'm stumbling through it and experimenting, that I can help my community pick up the pace. And I'll take the burden. I love it. I don't mind taking the burden and doing the teaching, because that's how I operate.
Wow. Well, man, I think that's some powerful stuff. Thank you so much for sharing it. Many of us are going to find ourselves in that very same point. It's funny how when stuff like that happens, it forces you to make a decision, a real value. Like, I got to stop. Because, think about it. We're all busy. We didn't sit around and say, "Well, I'm going to plan nothing for Wednesday. And if something comes up,
Right.
I'll be available." We have our lives all planned out, our
That's
daily planners and all the stuff that we do. But when things come into our space, sometimes people look at it as a distraction. And, I think a part of this growth is to recognize a distraction from an opportunity.
That's big. That's big.
Yeah.
That's big.
And to make that decision, that, hey, and to listen to the signs. You said so many things, when certain people tell you something, as you said, this person wasn't trying to tell you anything. They're saying, "Hey, based on what I've seen of you, you need to be here."
100%.
And to be open and receptive to it. And then to just take charge and say, "I'm going to do what it takes to get there." Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And it made me move 8 meetings. I canceled a day of content creation that is arbitrated on my calendar. It's set on my calendar for not to be disturbed. But again, I'll back up one thing about how this even came to be. So back in December 2022, I don't watch the news a lot. And I think a lot of your listeners probably follow, I can't get too tied up with the news, except I have a rule, and I've developed this for about 20 years. And it's that if something major is happening in the world, I will likely hear about it from 3 to 5 people within a couple of days or a week.
Okay.
And until and unless something like that happens. So I got messaged 3 or 4 or 5 times the second week of December, between the second week of December and the 4th week of December. And I was getting ready to take vacation. Mind you, I get messaged about ChatGPT 3 to 5 times or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this must be something I need to take a look at, because it fit into my rule of pay attention.
Yes.
So I took the last week of December, instead of taking vacation, I started playing with ChatGPT to find out what it was, what it does, and how it affects. And then again, to your point, I get the message from a longtime friend of mine, and she has nothing to sell me. But she says, hey, based on what I heard you talk about in your class, I think this will be another level for you to take. So, and we all get those signs. We all get those signs, and we just have to acknowledge them and look for those opportunities. So,
wow. Well, I tell you, you've stimulated my interest. I'm taking this as a sign, because it's been coming at me, as you say, 2 and 3 times. As a matter of fact, one of my best friends, he's one of those guys that does was it cybersecurity? His job is to test other companies' security systems. So I guess
oh yeah.
so they hire him to try to break in. And so I guess it's an interesting job, because once you've let a company know you know how to break in, they get rid of you.
Well, yeah.
And change everything. Once you share their vulnerabilities, and they're like, okay, now we know what to fix, and now we need to get rid of this one guy who knows what the problem was. Yeah,
right, right.
yeah. So
no.
yeah, but it's been really coming at me. Now, thank you so much for reading the book, for taking a look. Any thoughts on the book? How it helped you? How you see it being a benefit to others?
Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, it's a rich read. I mean, so many principles, so many nuggets. I like the way you organized it in terms of universal concepts, and then broke down individual chapters within the book. So I think there's something for everyone wherever they are. I love what I felt was the spiritual context of where, and that fit well with me. And I think of it as something that we all need a modern day reminder of universal truths. These things are, whether you take them out of whether your background is from a Bible, or from a church, or from a Think and Grow Rich perspective, or from a modern day self-help or personal development perspective, from any guru that you talk to, or whatever the case may be, we all need these reminders. The universal law of affirmation, right? I just said something about this on Instagram the other day, that even the best of us need to reaffirm ourselves on a daily basis. And sometimes we can go too far and start de-affirming ourselves, if that's the right word, or negative self-talking ourselves, which you talk about, I think, early in the book, right?
Yes.
Be careful with how we talk to ourselves. Sometimes it's so easy to call ourselves names and say we missed this or we missed that. No, just reaffirm that you're where you need to be at the right time for your purpose and your process. And but I think there's a lot. I didn't get through the whole book. I'm not going to say I got through the whole book, but I love the general topic of it. Just fits with who I am and how I've operated the last 30 years. So I really appreciate you putting it together and taking the work, because it's a huge work to put a book together like that.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Well, just a couple more thoughts. I think you already answered one question. One question I often ask is, what advice would you give your younger self? And you said something, believe in yourself a little sooner. That was powerful, man. That was awesome. Any other advice you'd give your younger self?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I really look back, I think belief is at the root of all accomplishment, all whatever it is. It doesn't matter if it's economic or entrepreneurship. It's at the root of every level of success in your life. But I also would say that you've got to be okay with, and this hits people a little bit wrong when I say it sometime, and that is, we've got to be okay that failure is really not failure. It's an outcome we didn't hope for.
Okay.
And if we change that concept, because I've worked with so many people the last 30 years, 20 years specifically, and we're afraid that one setback. Look, I had a 470 FICO score, turned it into by the way, I earned the 470 because I was upside down, as I made a comment earlier. I turned it into a 700 in a couple of years. You can do that. I've been bankrupt. Got out of that. And I've had businesses that didn't work out. I've had, my business partner and I, we split last year. I didn't see that coming. You could look at that as a failure. I actually sat back saying, did I do something to cause our breakup? We have to be okay with the word failure in whatever we're doing. And I just rephrased it over the years to say that failure is just an outcome that we didn't hope for or didn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's happened, it's a fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a fact. Like the thing is a fact. Right now, inflation's high. That's a fact, right? We had a pandemic. That's a fact, right? Real estate rates and house prices are high. Those are facts. So now that we have the facts, what are we going to do now with the new facts? And that to me is where the power lies, right? It's not to take the facts and just complain about them all day, because that ain't going to get you nowhere.
Right.
And so my advice is, don't let failure become your identity, because it's just an outcome. And if you don't like the outcome, well, guess what? Try again. And if it doesn't work again, try again. I failed more times than I can even, there's no way I can count them. And I don't even want to, because I think we said it earlier. If you're not failing, you're not moving forward.
I think Winston Churchill said that success is moving from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm.
Right. Yeah. He also said, according to the internet, I always wonder, because I wasn't around when he said these things, but I believe he also said, if you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop.
Don't stop.
Don't stop.
Oh man,
I love these quotes. I always laugh because we quote them, and I'm like, I wasn't around when he said it, so I don't know who said it, but the internet said he said it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times with quotes, I often use quotes in my talks, and I just after a while I said, let me go see who said it. Look up the guy and get a little information about that, because everybody just, Joe Smith said this. Well, who's Joe Smith?
That's right. Yeah. I always when I quote, I love quoting as well. I think it's super it's important part of my life to really think about how other people thought about it when they were 100 years, 200 years, whatever number of years it was.
Yeah.
But I also say, when I quote somebody, I'll say, and according to the internet, this person said.
Yes. Like that's
I don't want people saying, hey, how did you know he said that? I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
But
well, one of the things that we teach is that you either have a victory or a lesson. So instead, replace every failure as just a lesson. As you say, it's an unexpected outcome. It's a good indication of what not to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we've heard it from so many great people, right? I mean, Colonel Sanders, you hear about that story. You hear about Thomas Edison.
Yes.
I mean, let's be clear. Everyone who's accomplished anything has had more hardship through that journey than they have had success.
Yes.
And the other part about success is it's super easy once you figure it out. It's almost like walking on a treadmill. Like it doesn't change. The process of success doesn't change. Taco Bell runs the same way today as it did 30 years ago when I worked there, which is probably from the day. I mean, nothing has changed since the day I left there. If I go through the drive-through, it happens the same way, which means success is routine once you figure out the formula.
Well, Ken Brown, who owned the two McDonald's, he said, you have to have a system, and system means save yourself time, energy, and money.
Yes. 100%.
Well, Darrell, I tell you, man, we've had such great conversation. Let's see, you've done and accomplished so many things. What would you say is your crowning achievement, your greatest victory to date? I know, and I'll say to date because I know there's greatness in the future. What do you say your greatest victory to date?
And I have to say this, it's not a business success whatsoever. It's not me going from my grandmother's couch at one point to starting and growing a business. It's none of that. It's not the 470 FICO. It's not the agency of 12 years. We've helped companies exit, grow from next to nothing to exit. And my greatest victory is being a good dad to my to now I've got a family of 5. So at the time it was 2 boys where we were separated. And I set a goal for myself to be a good dad. And I didn't know what that definition meant. I also didn't realize until I got a little bit older and that I wouldn't be able to judge the outcome of that goal because it would be up to them to decide if I was a good dad, not me.
Yes.
And that was the profound switch for me as I got later in life, because here they are, they're 8 and 2 when me and their mom separated. And then, of course, I had a daughter since, and now through marriage, blended family of 5. The question was, I don't get to decide if I'm a good dad or not. So that just means I have to be careful with how I show up and my integrity and my intentions. And that to me has been, my son turned 30, and him and his wife, and they invited us on a cruise. And I was like, he still wants to hang out with me. That's all right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That I'll take it. My younger son called me the other day and he's like, Dad, I need some advice
Uh-huh.
on some things.
Yeah.
I need your perspective on some things. Like,
Woo,
I
man.
love it. I love
Yeah.
my daughter called and said, hey, she's a freshman in college. She's like, hey, I'm not sure I'm down with this nursing idea in college. She goes, I'm thinking about engineering. What do you think? And I'm like, I
Uh-huh.
think you ought to go to the conference and check it out.
Yes.
So for me, it's simple, but being a good dad and being uh, having a good relationship with my kids and both my adopted family, if you will, or my blended family, as well as my blood, it's been one of the biggest pleasures of my life.
Wow. Now that as a dad, I have like children in each generation. I have a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, and a 30-year-old. Okay.
Okay.
And so my daughter, I think probably the greatest joy as a dad, my daughter just last week, she called and she said, Dad, she says, thank you. I said, well, what did I do? Last time she told me that, I said, well, she said, thank you, Dad. And I said, well, what did I do? She said, I can't tell you. So, so
Leave you
whatever.
hanging.
Yeah. Whatever the advice I gave her. But she said, this time she said, thank you, Dad. I really appreciate it. She said, I finally got it. And I said, well, what happened, dear? She said, she's a singer, musician. She said, I had a interview, one of the top TV people in New York. He does a community show, and she went up and she was supposed to be there at 8:45. She got there early and did a great show. The guy loved her. The person who was supposed to shoot the next segment didn't come. And in the conversation, they had said, she said, I play piano, guitar, and all that. So the host he said, well, listen, he says, can you do the next segment? You have your guitar. And
Wow.
she didn't have her guitar. And I used to always tell her when we would go out, I'd say,
Oh,
Livy, bring your axe. We were doing a road trip once. And I said, I'm taking my guitar. Okay.
right.
And she said, Dad, she said, I finally got it. She said, that was an incredible opportunity. And she said, when I was walking out the door, I looked at my guitar and my mind said, my dad would tell me to take that guitar. And I'm like, ah. She said, I got it, Dad. When I walk out the door, the guitar's going with me. I'm
It's
like,
coming. Right.
it's coming. Yeah. So there's no greater joy. That's a great victory, Darrell. Thank you so
That's
much.
amazing. No, I
Yeah.
love, and it's always great when they get the lesson later. When we wanted them to get it 4 years ago,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we got to let them go through their own journey, right?
Well, it goes back to what you're saying. You can't say that you're a good dad. That's something they have to say that. They get the message when they get it. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, now, any closing thoughts, any closing remarks you'd like to share with our audience? We've covered a lot of stuff, and I think you've given so much value, and man, just so much rich information to many entrepreneurs who may be doubtful about whether they can do it, and people who are going through family changes, business upheavals. Any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Keep going. First of all, get the book.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten the book yet, get the book, 12 Universal Laws of Success. Get it on your bookshelf. Whether it's digital or not, I've got the digital copy, obviously. But just remember that every day we get a choice to decide. It's our choice to decide how we're going to keep playing in this world, and you can play any way you want. And again, if you're tired, find someone who's running and just get close. I call it the draft technique. And so this is something that I believed in for years. Like, I don't have to try to learn everything, but I need to get close enough to someone who has done the work, who's carved the path, and then pay what I need to be close to them. Like, I can credit my success largely to just getting close enough to the people who've already paved the way and paid to be in their world, in their space. Again, that could be a conference, that could be an online membership, that could be a Facebook group, that could be hiring a coach, any of those types of mechanisms. But a lot of times we don't invest in growth. And that's just not reading the book. Let me say this last thing too. And I remember saying this on Facebook some years ago, and I caught some static for it, but I believe it. Don't just get Dr. Herbert Harris's book. and think that information is power. It's the application of these principles. It's the application that makes it power. I don't care. You can be a bookworm you can know everything in under the sun if you want, but you've got to apply it. And application means just I believe in this so much. That is, do the most simplest thing you can do consistently over a long period of time and watch what happens. I challenge you to do one simple thing consistently over a long period of time. Read a good chapter of a book and then take action on what you read, right? Go to this event, but I challenge you to do it over a long period of time, because the truth of success is it's not overnight.
Yes.
It's a process. Process.
Yes.
And along that way will come those days when you don't feel like it. My brother tried to, I'm being funny, super funny, but my brother tried to kill me on Friday. I said, I'm being funny. He's my trainer. He's my physical, he's my coach. And there was a workout that showed up in my app for his program. And I sent him a note, and I was being funny. I said, hey man, there's only been 2 times in the history of my 52 years that I've questioned your love for me. One was, and I reminded him of a date back in the day in the backyard. We were playing basketball. And then a second one was, I said, and the second would be today, because it felt like he was trying to kill me with this workout today. But pain is a part of the process, is what I'm getting at. So anyway, Dr. Harris, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for hosting this space for us to have this conversation. And I appreciate you reaching out and getting connected with me. And I'm glad we were able to get this talk on today. And I hope your listening audience got something from it.
Well, thank you so much, Darrell. And tell a little about your program, because you have a great podcast. I'm looking forward to being on your program. Maybe tell a little about it and how people can find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So wherever you're listening to Dr. Harris's The Renaissance Man podcast, you can find the Mind Shift podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Google, if you happen to be over there. And the intention was Mind Shift is the way I see personal development. It is that once we get to a place in life and things aren't going our way, it takes us to shift our mind, shift our results, shift our way of thinking. And so what we do every week is have conversations. I like to say real stories, provide real strategy that'll help you find real success. And we have great conversations with great entrepreneurs like Dr. Harris. He's going to be on coming up here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And we've got about 220 episodes out. And then I also do some teaching about entrepreneurship and marketing and growth mentality. And we've got a free Facebook group for those that may want to come join us there. But you can find all of that out wherever you're listening to podcasts. And that's the Mind Shift podcast with Darrell Evans.
Thank you so much, Darrell. We appreciate you, man. I look forward to our podcast. And to our listeners, this is one of those programs you're going to listen to time and time again, because I guarantee you're going to hear something here and that you're going to like, man, let me play that again. Let me listen to this one more time. That's me. That's me that's standing there wondering what to do. That's me that's faced with whether I want to do a great job or just an ordinary job. So thank you for sharing and being an inspiration to so many people. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, sir. I'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. So folks, remember this, that you can be what you want to be, do what you want to do, and have anything you desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.